Thanks, Haley.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good luck.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Mai Zong Vue, and I am live on Facebook with the Wisconsin Historical Society Press. Today, I will be sharing a little bit about the Hmong and our little history, a little bit about the history and why we came to Wisconsin, just to give you a short overview of who the Hmong people are in Wisconsin. So, welcome. First of all, did you know that this year marks 45 years of Hmong diaspora, meaning that as a people that's dispersed into different places in the world, we have left Laos since 1975, and many of us landed in the United States, while other people went to different parts of the world like Australia, France, and other parts of the world. So many of you may have seen we have a whole series of 45-year celebration of Hmong diaspora scheduled, but that didn't take place because of COVID-19, and we will have that in the future. So just want to let you guys know that this is 45 years of our anniversary. So, for those of you who don't know anything about the Hmong people, you may not know that we are as old as 5,000 years. We are a people that has a rich history dated back to what we know as China today. And those of you who wanted to learn more about the Hmong history and the Hmong people, there's this wonderful book that just came out called Cultural and Costumes of the Hmong. It's written by Dr. Gary Lee Ye and Nicholas Tab. And this gives you an overview of the Hmong culture and history. So those of you who don't know about the Hmong and you want to learn more about our culture, this is a good beginner book to read. And I want to, excuse me, for people who wanted to know, we are 5,000-year-old history dated back to China. Legend and stories and texts have shown that we have our own kingdom way before the war started, when other people like the government wanted more land and started to move into smaller groups and knock their land and take over their land. And then they, as a people, meaning Hmong people and other ethnic groups, started to fight with the government. And that's how many years of war started with the Hmong in what we call China today. And many of us, our ancestor, who did not want to comply to the um, government at that time, moved to Southeast Asia, meaning they moved to different parts of outside of what is China. And our ancestor came to Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, and they started a new life all over again in Laos. So in Laos, many years before the French came to colonize the Southeast Asia, the Hmong people lived peacefully, up in the mountain, because when our ancestor landed in Laos, the lower part of the country were occupied already, and they wanted a peaceful life for themselves. So they lived remotely up in mountains, even though way back in China, our ancestor over there lived in lowland, and Hmong were known to be the first um, group of people who invented rice paddy. So those of you who wanted to learn more about that, you can learn as well. Anyway, so in Southeast Asia, we lived peacefully for many years, and then the French came and started to develop Southeast Asia. And then after the French left, then the American came to prevent Laos from becoming a communist country. And that's when the Hmong people got involved with the United States, is under the CIA's secret war. And it is secret because it's kept from the American people, from the government, for many, many years until it was discovered by journalists. And so that's when we have a lot of elders today who are still with us, um, sacrifices their time fighting in the secret war for all of us. So many of you may have seen this piece of history, right? So this piece of history is a story cloth, and the story cloth tells the story of how the Hmong escaped from Laos to Thailand, and then to cross the Mekong River right there to Thailand on the other side. And they stay in the camp for many, many years. And while they're waiting there, they're waiting for opportunities to be resettled into other parts of the world, which I talked about earlier. So you see here the airplane, the soldier, and the river, and crossing that to Thailand. So this tells the story of why the Hmong became refugees. And I say the Hmong, meaning the Hmong people who supported the United States during the Vietnam War. There's Hmong people who are also supporting the opposition. So we also have Hmong people on the Vietnamese side or the Viet Cong side. So those Hmong, like my father, who supported the CIA or under General Vang Pao's leadership, we became refugees in Thailand. And I myself, for example, grew up in Thailand in refugee camp for 5 years before I came to the United States. So this story cloth tells that story of us becoming refugee, moving to Thailand, stay in a refugee camp. So anyone who wants to learn about Hmong in refugee camp, the biggest camp called Ban Vinai is where you can find more literature on the Hmong life in refugees. So you want to learn more about that, you can learn about Hmong's life and refugee. So from the refugee camps, we, again, many of us came to the United States. Other people went to other parts of the world. And so I wanted to ask, did you know that there is a, you know, difference between the term refugee and immigrant? And that definition has to do with two different sets of environment, right? So although some people call us immigrant, we are not immigrants. Hmong people, Southeast Asian people, Somali, Burmese, other refugees who arrived in the United States as refugee came under the term definition because refugees, unlike immigrants, do not know where they're going, do not plan where and who they're going to meet, but overnight they just leave because their life is in danger, meaning that if they don't leave, somebody will kill them because of their support for different government, for religion purpose, whatever the purpose is. They have made themselves an enemy of the current government, so then they have to leave. So for the Hmong people, refugee means we have to leave because people like my dad would be marked for extinction, including his kids. And so we have to leave. So refugees and immigrants have different purpose when they come to the United States. Immigrant, on the other hand, they plan ahead where they're going, who's going to wait for them at the airport or at, wherever destination they're going to go. And they mostly moved because they want a better economic opportunities for their family. Unlike refugees, they have no choice, but they have to leave if they want to stay alive. So that's the difference between the two terms that oftentimes people use it together interchangeably, and it's two different definition, and it means the reality often means the adjustment level are also different as well. So that's a little bit about the refugee experience and the refugee resettlement. Many people ask me, Mai Zong, why do people come to Wisconsin when it's such a cold, icy winter? And I often say, again, we are refugee. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what Wisconsin looked like. We don't know what Madison looked like. We just needed to leave. So if we have known that it would have been snow, probably we may have gone to California, just like many people who are lucky to go to California in a warm climate. So we go wherever our sponsor is at the time or was at the time. So that's how we landed in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, Hmong people are scattered over 15 counties. So, like Milwaukee County has the largest, and then Wausau and Sheboygan, they're smaller town, but they have the highest ratio of Hmong in their community, for example. And then we have Hmong in Eau Claire, in La Crosse, Fond du Lac, in Green Bay, in Oshkosh, Appleton, Madison, and so forth. So if you want to know more about the Hmong in Wisconsin, you can, read up in um, the Hmong in Wisconsin book that I just finished writing, and I will show and walk with you a little bit about that book later. But one of the questions that people often ask me is, what did the Hmong people bring with them when they come to Wisconsin as refugees? And I wanted to share, although everybody's stories is different, the commonality that's the same for all family is that they don't bring anything more than a suitcase full of their personal belonging, like their jewelries or um, pictures or personal things that they absolutely have to have. Some people were able to bring little musical instrument like this, and other people take in their musical instrument like the thing. This is a miniature version, so you can't really see well, but this is a multi-instrument, multi-purpose instrument that we use in the community. And so the commonality is that we bring at least a suitcase full of stuff for the family of 10 people, 12 people, depending on what it is. So we don't bring very much materialistic with us because we were refugees in a refugee camp. However, we brought with us, or our parents brought with us, a lot of cultures that are being integrated right now in Wisconsin. So, for example, I show you the story cloth. So, the story cloth is a skill set for, Hmong people where in the refugee camp, they do this as therapy to kill time and also to bring in money because then they would send the story cloth to the United States or other parts of the world and sell it and then send the money back to the refugee camp. But we brought with us rich culture, including needlework, embroidery, reverse applique, like this one. This is what we call reverse applique, and you have to be very skillful to be able to do this. And those of you who have seen this, is perfectly measured, even though Hmong women do these without any type of tools to help them measure. They just fold it with their finger and they sewed it with a needle and thread. And so we brought with us, lots of hand decorative artwork. We also brought with us our costumes. So, for example, here you see, me and my husband in our traditional costume, and the instrument that I show you in reality, the real size is this big or bigger, right? Many times we also were able to bring the skills of making jewelry. So like this is a necklace piece, right? And you wear this during special occasions like New Year, wedding, and so forth. Um, We also brought with us, the skills of loving children by carrying them in baby carrier like this. This is a miniature version of a baby carrier. But again, the needlework, the tradition of carrying children, love them by building bond with them, by um, putting them on your back, putting them on your front. In the 80s, back baby carrier is not popular in the mainstream, but nowadays you see all kinds of, baby carrier that is made, um, that's different from the Hmong version, but, carrying baby on your back and your front now is a trend rather than, a shame. So anyway, we brought in a lot of those, as well as we, brought with us the culture that many, many years ago, the Caucasian or the settler in the early years brought with them, and that is respect for our elders, respect for family members, support system for the family. And for many of us, we also brought with us the respect for authority, because we feel like, without the authority who give us structure, we wouldn't be able to hold on as a unit. So that also includes clan leaders, clan system, and kinship, right? So all of those culture practices are still, happening in Wisconsin, in America, among the Hmong people, but depending on the level of acculturation and assimilation that that family has gone through in that process. So some may be, more on family structure, and others might be more individualized, like, the norm here. So we brought with us cultures, costumes, weddings, and funeral is still very important. So we still do, um, lots of practice there, in particularly to like having a zikeng, like this person who we call zikeng, right? A little miniature version who would still, send off our deceased loved members back to their ancestor, if we believe in traditional religion of animism. For those who become Christian, we don't do the sending back our loved one to our ancestor with musical instruments and rituals anymore, but many of the community, many people in the community still do the traditional. So what did we bring to Wisconsin? We brought with us cultures that are enriching people's life here in the United States. We brought with us arts and craft and so forth. So um, I wanted to just say, so I have a book that I just finished many years ago, but it's just published out this year, called The Hmong in Wisconsin. And I left the book inside, so I don't have the book with me. But in the book, is a very fundamental book that tells the, introduces you to the Hmong in Wisconsin. And in that book, you get to learn about, again, a little bit of history, a little bit of the culturation, the culture clashes that we have when we first landed here in Wisconsin, to people like me, myself, who we call the 1.5 generation. We came in as teenager. We have a foot in our Hmong culture, a foot in the American, and imagine 2 feet on two canoe, trying to balance two canoe at the same time. That's what most of the 1.5 generations experiences are, is balancing the act between two worlds. So in that book, you learn a lot about that introduction to our lives in Wisconsin. And then if you want to read more, there's more books out there written by Hmong people about them. So for example, this is a book called Success That Looks Like Me, right? So in here, you'll be able to read up individual stories about that particular individual who write about who they are and what their life is like and the success that they have made for themselves. So this book, for example, are from individuals in Minnesota and some Wisconsin, and that's what you can find and learn more about Hmong if you want to learn. And there's other books that you want to read up if you want to know more about Hmong culture. For example, this is a book called Calling the Soul, right? And this one talks more about Hmong culture practices. Or if you really want to read up in the history in the Vietnam War, in the Secret War, for example, here is, a recent book by Dr. Tia Vang from UW Milwaukee called Fly Until You Die, right? So this one is a collection of Hmong pilots and Hmong soldiers who were part of the Secret War. So I'm showing you all these books so you can read up about it. And I am very happy to have this opportunity to briefly talk about the Hmong in Wisconsin and go read up on the book that I wrote for Wisconsin Historical Society Press, and email me if you have any question or you want to discuss more about my experience in writing the book, and I will share that with you. And I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen to me this morning, and have a wonderful day in Madison, Wisconsin. Take care.